Madame FOTABONG. What are the main goals of NEPAD regarding land tenure?
Well, the NEPAD, as the development agency of the African Union, the focus is on development. And when you talk about development, we're not just talking about growth, but we are talking about inclusive development. Inclusive and sustainable development. Therefore, meaning that in terms of land tenure, we want to work with member states to promote land policies that are well administered, that are equitable, that ensures that as much as possible you have ownership rights recognized in all stratas of society. As you know, for African, land is not, it's just more than an economic asset. It's an important economic asset, but it has cultural, traditional, and spiritual values.
At the opening session, you spoke with a lot of emotion concerning gender equity. Mm-hmm. How important is gender equity regarding, again, land tenure? Why is it so important to recognize the rights of women regarding lands and culture and even property in urban areas?
Well, it's extremely important because if you look at from different angles, actually, from the angle of social justice, from the angle of food security, and from the angle of equity, you know, in many instances, women don't own land, you know, in rural areas. In many African societies, they don't own land. So what happens if the husband dies without her not having title to the land? The possibility of her being evicted from that land is extremely high. We have a program called GCAPS, which is Gender, Agriculture, and Climate Smart Program. And we did consultations in many African countries that were engaged in this program. One of the things that came out was this particular issue of land ownership and women not having title to lands and the consequences thereof for them and their children when they lose their husband. So another family member comes, a man from maybe the husband, the late husband, brother or cousins or whatever, and take the land. So they are evicted. Now they find themselves with nowhere to go. So to have security of tenure, it's so extremely important that we support women to be able to have property rights. Similar thing in terms of investment. As you know, in women, agriculture is mostly smallholder farmers. And 60% of the smallholder farmers are women. But now these women do not have title to the land. Now, if you don't have title, you cannot get credit from the banks. You cannot, you know, give this as land as collateral to get inputs. The consequences is that investment to increase production in your farm is low. And this have consequences in food security. You know, you might know that 80% of the household food eaten in the continent are produced by women smallholder farmers. So again, it's of critical importance that we try to give security of tenure to women for the interests of our economies, our societies, and our families.
My last question is concerning this year's conference, which theme is catalyzing innovation. How do you feel as the director of programs of the NEPAD regarding this theme, this catalyzing innovation? What does this express for you? What does this mean for you? You have some examples of actions that you feel are connected to this year's theme?
You know, I mean, catalyzing innovation, the way I look at it, is beyond digital innovation, because in most of the discussion during this conference has been around digital innovation, technology. But it should be beyond technology. I think policy reforms, talking about the kind of policies that we just said that will support women and protect the right will be policy innovation. So I will want to broaden the discussion on catalyzing innovation to look at policies, technologies, and institutional reforms that advances the interests of achieving an equitable society.
Thank you very much.